Russia and China were seated at the table and they were consuming a lot of food. I mean, they had this almost bottomless pit, ravenous appetite, and they just kept eating and eating and eating. And as a result of the demand that they put, the need for food that they had, the butlers and the servants just kept coming. So it was like there was a revolving door, and servants just kept coming, bringing in food and more food on these very, the silver platters that have the dome cover. That's how all the food came out. It was large silver platters covered with third, fourth, fifth helpings. And as soon as they were finished, the waiters cleared the food away and brought more. I saw that Germany and France were also seated at the tables. Everybody was wearing black ties, so they were all in tuxedos, but France and Germany were wearing ceremonial sashes, and I've seen them in several cummerbunds in those colors. Now, these two countries had place settings in front of them, so the place was set in front of them, but they absolutely did not partake of the meal. They were not eating anything, and they had even taken their hands off the table, so they had their hands crossed in their lap to absolutely show and make it clear that they were not interested in the food being served, and they did not even engage the others at the table. They were staring straight ahead of themselves, deadpan, just completely wooden, as if they were not even present at the dinner. And then there was one last guest. The United States was there, of course, dressed very well. She had a speech bubble coming from her mouth in this vision, and written in the speech bubble was blah, 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 blah. So she was already drunk, she was waving her hands excitedly, she was talking a lot, and occasionally, China or Russia, mouth full, would look up from the plate and observe her, thoughtfully. And then they would go back to serving themselves from the platters. But despite the fact that America kept talking, and that she was already drunk and having herself, I suppose, quite a moment, China or Russia did not stop consuming. Now, I looked closer at the platters, and I saw that there were words written on the dome covers of the food. One cover said, sitting duck, and the other cover said, cooked goose. So these were the only two meals being served, sitting duck, cooked goose. And this is what Russia and China kept on eating and eating and eating. Germany and France never touched the food, and America never noticed that the continuous meal that kept being served, that Russia and China kept eating, was her. She was the sitting duck. She was the cooked goose. I knew it was her, standing there as the observer. China and Russia knew that it was her, and they took and they took and they took everything that they wanted from these meals. France and Germany knew that the meal being served was America, and though they did not put out their hands to partake of the meal, and there was no trace of food on their plates, they also did not look at America. They didn't throw America any signals. They didn't do anything like calm down or sober up or pay attention and watch the room and be more alert. They did not give her any warning or signals, and written over the head of Germany and France was the word abstain. So the Lord gave me the interpretation of this vision. As many times as I've said already, things are already underway for the overthrow, the downfall, and the destruction of the USA. Inside the nation, the hand of conspirators are setting things up for an economic downturn, as well as carefully planned terror strikes that will weaken the fabric of society and fray it enough to tear it apart. In the global arena, there are also storylines at work. Russia, China, and other nations are working even now to form alliances, teams, and coalitions that will be based on a common hatred of America. Now, I'm sure many will want to debate this, but all you have to do is look at the political arena to know that America does have enemies. There are many people who feel that America's enemies are wrong to hate her. They feel that America's enemies are unjust to dislike her. And of course, there's this overarching belief, the greatest country in the world. Americans have been raised on this understanding that they can do no wrong, and that anybody who doesn't want to fall into line because of the various administrations and the rhetoric, basically, that they have put out to stir the American people into believing that when they go to war, they're always justified, they can do no wrong, and any harm, any death, any decimation of other nations that is called is just, collateral damage in terms of keeping the peace. This idea of freedom by force, basically, this is what America has done, that even if you don't want to be free, won't make you free by force. All these things have stirred up so much animosity around the world, and I think that it is wisdom to consider these things, to take these things into consideration when we are looking to the future. You cannot strike a match and not expect fire to come or spring forth from that match. So China and Russia are just two nations, but I'm sure that there are others. We just have to look at the last 20 years in world politics. Just look at the U.S. footprint. I'm just going to say, look at the U.S. footprint geopolitically, and you will be able to come to some conclusions, I think, that will lead you to understand that not everybody is a friend out there, and not everybody is an ally out there. And therefore, we have to understand that there are nations that want to see this nation humbled and removed from the global scene for good. And so in this vision, we see America's enemies are consuming her like a cooked goose. To them, she is a sitting duck. But I think that what stood out to me most is the behavior of her allies. Though they did not reach out their hand to help destroy her, they were very careful not to get involved against these two massive nations. And this tells us that in the future, France and Germany will not help America when she needs it most. They are her traditional allies in war, but they will do nothing to prevent her disruption. And all you have to do is read Revelation chapter 18, and you will see it there where it says that, the merchants who had traded with her and her friends stood afar off, and they said, alas, alas. And I shared that when you hear someone say the word alas, alas is an exclamation that lets you know that a person feels very bad for what has happened, but that person does not feel that they are in a position to change what has happened. Alas means, oh, if only, as in, oh, if only this had not happened. Oh, if only the situation were not so. But alas doesn't mean, and here I come to the rescue, my sword will defend you. Alas simply means, I hate to see this happen. And then, flatline.